Look at this uppity boy thinking he can just plant his weeds wherever he wants in our neighborhood. Derek Morrison spits directly onto carefully planted seedlings. His boots crush tender tomato plants with deliberate malice. The sickening crunch of stems breaking fills the morning air. He kicks over a handmade wooden sign reading, Thompson Family Farm, Estenti 2018. The peaceful garden that moments before held neat rows of corn and beans now faces systematic destruction. The scent of rich soil mingles with exhaust fumes and hatred. His three companions laugh and pull out their phones to film. They systematically destroy weeks of cultivation. The sound of breaking stems mingles with mocking laughter. Months of careful work disappear under their boots in minutes. Have you ever watched someone destroy something you built with your own hands, thinking they could get away with it just because of who they thought you were? Riverside, Ohio sits in morning shadow, a working-class neighborhood caught between old roots and new pressures. Chain-link fences border modest homes where American flags hang from weathered porches. The smell of coffee drifts from kitchen windows as residents prepare for another day. At 5:30 a.m., Elijah Thompson moves through his quarter-acre garden with quiet precision. His calloused hands check soil moisture around each plant. Worn work boots step carefully between rows. The 42-year-old black man wears simple clothes, faded jeans, a clean but old baseball cap, a t-shirt that's seen many washing cycles. His movements carry an unusual awareness. Eyes scan the perimeter while he adjusts plant supports. Fingers work the soil, but his posture suggests readiness for something beyond gardening. Each step is deliberate, measured. The garden itself tells a story of transformation. What was once a vacant lot filled with broken glass and weeds now hosts raised beds built with military precision. An irrigation system runs along perfect lines. A small greenhouse sits in the corner, its glass panels catching early sunlight. Tomato plants climb sturdy supports. Corn stalks stand in neat formation. Bean plants wind around wooden poles like green spirals reaching toward the sky. Everything has its place. Everything serves a purpose. Mrs. Rosa Delgado approaches from next door, carrying 2 steaming coffee cups. The 67-year-old Latina woman moves slowly but with determination. Her weathered face shows kindness mixed with concern. "Morning, Elijah. Thought you might need this." "Much appreciated, Mrs. Delgado." His voice carries quiet strength, each word carefully chosen. She hands him the cup, steam rising between them in the cool morning air. "Those boys were circling again last night. Heard their engines past midnight." Elijah nods, sipping the coffee. His eyes automatically sweep the alley where fresh tire marks scar the gravel. Broken glass glitters near the dumpster. Another sign of the Riverside Reaper's presence. The neighborhood bears other scars. Graffiti mars the windows of Martinez Family Barbershop 3 blocks down. The Mexican restaurant on Oak Street recently replaced windows for the 2nd time this month. Each incident follows the same pattern. Young white men on motorcycles, targeting businesses owned by people of color. "My husband Carlos, he served too," Mrs. Delgado says softly. "Vietnam. He used to move like you do, always watching, always ready." Elijah's expression softens slightly. Among the vegetables, a small American flag marks a special section. Plants grown in honor of fallen comrades. The memorial area holds particular meaning, each plant representing a brother lost to war. Radio static drifts from Mrs. Delgado's open window. A news report discusses veteran suicide rates, PTSD challenges facing returning soldiers. The statistics paint a grim picture. 22 veterans lost daily to suicide, countless others struggling with invisible wounds. The community center could use fresh vegetables for their food program, Mrs. Delgado mentions, changing the subject to lighter ground. "I'll have plenty ready by next week." Elijah kneels to examine pepper plants, his movements fluid despite obvious strength beneath the surface. The morning routine continues with practiced efficiency. Check irrigation lines, adjust plant stakes, Remove any pest damage. Each task performed with attention to detail that speaks of discipline learned elsewhere. Motorcycle engines rumble in the distance, growing closer. The sound carries a different quality today, more aggressive, more purposeful. Mrs. Delgado's cup rattles against its saucer. "They're coming more often," she whispers. Elijah stands slowly, automatically positioning himself between the elderly woman and the approaching sound. His stance shifts subtly, weight balanced, hands loose at his sides, years of training surface beneath the civilian exterior. "Stay close to your house today," he suggests quietly. The engines grow louder. 4 motorcycles appear at the street's far end, moving slowly like predators stalking prey. Exhaust fumes drift ahead of them, polluting the clean morning air. Mrs. Delgado retreats toward her door but doesn't go inside. Other neighbors peek through curtains, watching the familiar tension build. The Riverside Reapers have been escalating their intimidation campaign for weeks. Elijah continues his garden work, seemingly unbothered. But his peripheral vision tracks every movement. His breathing remains steady, controlled. The coffee cup sits forgotten on a fence post as his full attention focuses on the approaching threat. The peaceful morning that began with bird songs and growing plants now holds the promise of violence. 4 young men who have never faced real consequence approach a man whose discipline has been forged in actual combat. They have no idea what they're about to encounter. The 4 motorcycles rumble to a stop at the garden's edge. Exhaust smoke mingles with morning dew as engines idle with deliberate menace. Chrome gleams under strengthening sunlight. Leather creaks as riders dismount with calculated swagger. Derek Morrison leads the pack at 28, his face marked by amateur tattoos and practiced arrogance. Multiple arrests for assault haven't dimmed his sense of invincibility. Behind him, Tommy Briggs bounces with nervous energy, eager to prove himself worthy of the gang's respect. Jake Winters moves with quiet menace, his hand resting near concealed weapons. At 31, he's the enforcer who turns threats into reality. The youngest, Pete Collins, films everything with his phone, chasing social media fame through others' suffering. They position their bikes to block escape routes, engines still running. The mechanical growl drowns out morning bird songs. Acrid exhaust replaces the clean scent of growing plants. Neighbors across the street pause their morning routines to watch through windows. Elijah continues checking his tomato plants, seemingly oblivious to the threat. His movements remain steady, but trained eyes catalog every detail. 4 adversaries, multiple exit points, potential weapons within reach. The hoe leaning against the fence. The garden rakes near his feet. Derek revs his engine twice more before cutting the motor. The sudden silence feels heavy, loaded with unspoken violence. His boots crunch on gravel as he approaches the garden's border. The sound echoes off nearby houses like gunshots. "Hey, boy, you got permits for this little farm stand?" The words slice through morning calm like a blade. Other neighbors retreat behind curtains, recognizing the familiar pattern of escalation. Mrs. Delgado watches from her doorway, cell phone already dialing 911. Her fingers shake as she enters the numbers. Elijah straightens slowly, soil dark under his fingernails. "Good morning. This is private property." His voice carries no challenge, no aggression. Years of military discipline have taught him when to fight and when to de-escalate. This situation hasn't crossed that line yet, but his peripheral vision tracks every movement. Derek steps into the garden without invitation, deliberately crushing a row of lettuce seedlings. The soft plants collapse under his weight, green leaves mixing with brown dirt. The destruction is methodical, purposeful. "Good morning." Derek's laugh holds no humor. "We've had complaints about this eyesore lowering property values." Tommy joins the intimidation, circling to Elijah's left flank. His boots leave deep impressions in the carefully tended soil. "Neighborhood Watch has authority to inspect potential safety violations." The lies flow easily. These men have practiced this routine on other victims, create false authority, manufacture justification, escalate until violence becomes necessary. They've used these exact words at the barber shop, the restaurant, the auto repair shop. Jake produces his phone, recording for evidence he plans to twist later. Better document this health hazard before someone gets hurt. Pete hesitates, showing a flicker of conscience before peer pressure wins. His camera captures everything, though he doesn't yet realize these recordings will doom his companions. The timestamp will prove premeditation. Elijah keeps his hands visible, maintaining a non-threatening posture despite every instinct screaming warnings. Gentlemen, I'm just trying to grow some vegetables here. Vegetables? Derek kicks over a support stake, sending bean plants cascading to the ground. Green vines that took weeks to train now lie broken and muddy. Looks like weeds to me. The casual destruction carries deeper meaning. This isn't about gardens or property values. It's about power, control, and the color of Elijah's skin in what Derek considers his neighborhood. Each broken plant represents their worldview. Tommy gains confidence from Derek's leadership, stepping on carefully tended herb plants. The aromatic leaves release their oils as they're crushed. Oops, accident. His grin reveals the lie. Nothing here is accidental. The scent of crushed basil and oregano rises from beneath his boots. Weeks of careful cultivation destroyed in seconds. But Elijah's breathing remains controlled, steady. He's survived worse than schoolyard bullies in places they couldn't imagine. You seem awfully calm for someone watching his livelihood get destroyed, Jake observes, looking for reactions to exploit. Inside Elijah's mind, tactical assessments run automatically. Distance to cover, improvised weapons available, threat levels of each opponent. Jake is the most dangerous. Military bearing, controlled movements. Tommy is unpredictable, high on adrenaline. Derek is all ego, exploitable. Pete is reluctant, might break under pressure. Derek approaches closer, invading personal space with practiced intimidation. His breath carries stale beer and cigarettes. Gold teeth glint when he smiles. What's wrong? Cat got your tongue? Other neighbors watch from behind curtains, some recording with phones. Mrs. Patterson from 2 houses down has her camera ready. But no one intervenes. The Riverside Reaper's reputation for retaliation keeps potential helpers at bay. Look, I don't want any trouble, Elijah says quietly. His words are carefully chosen, designed to give Derek an easy exit from escalating confrontation. Military training emphasized de-escalation as the first option. Trouble? Derek's voice rises with manufactured outrage. You're the one causing trouble, bringing your kind into decent neighborhoods. The racial undertone becomes an explicit threat. Tommy and Jake spread wider, flanking positions that would trap most victims. They've done this before, refined their technique through practice on easier targets. Standard intimidation tactics. Pete's camera captures everything, though he doesn't understand he's documenting federal hate crimes in progress. His social media dreams will become prosecution evidence. Every word, every action, time-stamped and preserved. Mrs. Delgado calls out from her doorway, "Boys, please stop this nonsense." Derek whirls toward the elderly woman, his mask of control slipping. Spittle flies from his lips as rage surfaces. Mind your own business, Abuela, before you get hurt too. The threat against Mrs. Delgado triggers something deeper in Elijah. His stance shifts almost imperceptibly. Weight redistributes, hands position for instant action. But discipline holds. Protect the innocent. Minimize collateral damage. Leave her out of this, Elijah says, his voice carrying new authority. Derek hears the change, mistakes it for fear building into desperation. Or what? You'll call the cops? They know who really belongs here. Jake starts going through garden tools, treating pruning shears and hand cultivators like evidence of criminal intent. Lot of weapons here for a simple garden. The psychological pressure builds systematically. Destroy property, threaten elderly neighbors, create false evidence, escalate until the victim reacts, providing justification for greater violence. Textbook intimidation escalation. Tommy kicks over a watering can, sending water streaming across pathways. The metal container clangs against a fence post. Slippery when wet, dangerous conditions. They're manufacturing reasons for whatever comes next, but they're also revealing their own limitations. Bullies who've never faced genuine resistance. Their tactics work on civilians. They won't work on what's coming. Elijah watches Derek approach the memorial section where the American flag marks plants grown for fallen comrades. Something cold settles in his chest as Derek's boot hovers over sacred ground. Brothers died for that flag. "What's this patriotic bullshit?" Derek sneers, preparing to desecrate the memorial. "Stolen valor much?" The flag represents brothers who died in Afghanistan and Iraq. Men who fell beside Elijah in places these bullies couldn't pronounce. Sacred memories Derek is about to trample. Lines being crossed. "You wouldn't understand," Elijah says quietly. Derek's boot comes down on memorial plants, crushing flowers left for the dead. Petals scatter like confetti at a funeral. "Bet you never served a day just playing dress-up." Jake films the destruction, planning to use it against Elijah later. But he's actually documenting the moment his leader crossed a line that will destroy them all. Evidence of desecrating a veteran's memorial. Pete lowers his phone slightly, finally recognizing they've gone too far. But fear of his companions keeps him silent. The group dynamic has trapped him in complicity. Mrs. Delgado's voice carries across the morning air. "Police are coming, boys. Time to leave." Derek's response reveals the depth of his arrogance. Let them come. They'll see who the real problem is. He has no idea that in exactly 7 minutes, those same police will discover they've been called to protect a Congressional Medal of Honor recipient from a hate crime attack. The garden lies partially destroyed. The memorial has been desecrated. An elderly woman has been threatened. But the real confrontation hasn't begun yet. These 4 men think they know who they're dealing with. They're about to learn how wrong assumptions can destroy lives. Derek's confidence grows with each destroyed plant. He pulls out a switchblade, gleaming silver in the morning sun. "Smells like something illegal growing here. Better check for drugs." The manufactured suspicion gives him an excuse for the illegal search he's been building toward. He waves the knife toward perfectly legal vegetables as if they were evidence of criminal enterprise. "These tomatoes look suspicious," Tommy adds, crushing another row under his boots. The red fruit bursts like blood against green leaves. Could be hiding something underneath. Jake starts systematically going through Elijah's tool shed, throwing implements onto the ground. Hand trowels clatter against metal watering cans. Seed packets scatter in the wind like confetti. A lot of weapons here for a simple gardener. Pete continues filming, though his enthusiasm has dimmed. The destruction feels too real now, too vicious. But stopping means facing Derek's wrath, and few have courage for that consequence. Elijah remains motionless as they ransack his life's work. Every muscle in his body wants to respond with violence learned in a dozen combat zones. But civilian rules still apply. De-escalation remains possible. Derek approaches within arm's reach, knife held loosely but visibly. "You seem nervous, boy. Got something to hide?" The blade catches sunlight as Derek gestures with it. Not quite a direct threat, but clear intimidation. His breathing carries excitement, adrenaline from wielding power over someone he considers helpless. "Nothing to hide," Elijah responds calmly. His eyes track the weapon's position while calculating response times. 3 seconds to disarm. 2 more to neutralize the other threats. But Mrs. Delgado watches from her doorway. Tommy finds the irrigation timer and rips it from its mounting. Wires spark as connections tear loose. Electrical hazard. Could start fires. The systematic destruction continues methodically. They're not just vandalizing, they're eliminating anything that represents Elijah's attempt to build something positive in their neighborhood. Jake discovers the greenhouse and begins methodically breaking glass panels. Each shard tinkles to the ground like broken dreams. Public safety violation, sharp glass everywhere. The sound carries across the quiet neighborhood. More windows crack open as residents peer out to witness the escalating violence. Some hold phones, recording evidence they hope they'll never need. Derek circles Elijah like a predator studying wounded prey. Bet you're real tough when you're not surrounded, aren't you? He's testing for reactions, looking for excuses to escalate further. The knife stays visible, a constant reminder of how quickly this could turn deadly. I'm not looking for trouble, Elijah repeats. Each word costs him effort as military training fights civilian restraint. Too late for that. Derek's voice carries finality. Trouble found you. Mrs. Delgado takes a step forward from her doorway. Enough! Leave him alone! Derek whirls toward her, knife still in hand. I told you to mind your business, old woman. Tommy laughs and shoves Mrs. Delgado backward. The elderly woman stumbles, catching herself against her doorframe. Her coffee cup shatters on concrete steps. The assault on Mrs. Delgado triggers something primal in Elijah. His body shifts subtly into a combat stance. Weight balanced, hands ready. Lines have been crossed. Don't touch her, Elijah says quietly. Derek hears the change in tone, misinterprets it as fear becoming desperation. Or what? You'll call for help? Jake continues destroying the greenhouse while filming with his phone. Getting good footage of this health hazard cleanup. They believe their own lies now. In their minds, they're community heroes removing a dangerous nuisance. The self-justification makes them more dangerous, more unpredictable. Pete reluctantly follows Tommy toward Mrs. Delgado's property. Maybe we should search her place too. Could be hiding drugs for him. The threat expansion terrifies other neighbors into retreating completely. Curtains snap shut. Recording phones disappear. The Riverside Reapers have successfully isolated their victims. Derek steps onto the memorial section, grinding his heel into plants dedicated to fallen soldiers. What's this supposed to be? Some kind of shrine? He kicks over the small American flag, sending it tumbling into muddy water from the broken irrigation system. The fabric soaks up dirt and debris. Just flowers, Elijah responds, but his voice carries new undertones. Something dangerous stirs beneath the civilian facade. Bullshit flowers, Derek sneers. Probably stolen valor crap. Bet you bought this flag at a garage sale. Jake approaches from Elijah's right side, weapons visible in his hands. Garden shears gleam like surgical instruments. Maybe we should check him for weapons, too. The encirclement tightens. 4 men, multiple weapons, no witnesses willing to intervene. They've done this before and faced no consequences. Experience tells them this will end the same way. Tommy grabs Elijah's shoulder, spinning him around roughly. Empty your pockets, now. Physical contact crosses another line. Elijah allows the manhandling while his mind automatically catalogs threats. Tommy's grabbing hand creates an opening. Jake's positioning leaves him vulnerable. Derek's knife work shows no training. This one thinks he's better than us, Derek announces to his companions. Living in our neighborhood, probably doesn't even pay taxes. Pete's camera captures every word, every action. The timestamps will prove premeditation when prosecutors review the footage later. The racial slurs begin flowing freely now. Derek unleashes a stream of epithets that reveal the true motivation behind their investigation. Hatred, pure and simple. Your kind doesn't belong in decent neighborhoods, Tommy adds, shoving Elijah again. Jake moves closer with the garden shears, testing Elijah's reactions. Maybe we should give him a haircut, clean him up for the real residents. The threat of violence becomes explicit. They're no longer pretending this is about property inspection or community safety. This is racial intimidation escalating toward assault. Elijah's breathing remains controlled, but his posture continues shifting. 18 years of combat training fights against civilian restraint. The balance tips toward action. Mrs. Delgado calls out again. "Police should be here any minute." Derek laughs at her hope. "Good. They'll arrest this troublemaker for us." He has no idea that Officer Bradley Parker is 2 blocks away, running Elijah's license plate through the police database. The results appearing on his screen will change everything. Tommy produces zip ties from his jacket pocket. Maybe we should restrain him until the cops arrive, for everyone's safety. The restraints represent kidnapping, false imprisonment, escalation beyond property crimes into federal territory, but they don't understand the legal implications of their actions. Jake positions himself behind Elijah while Tommy approaches from the front. Derek maintains overwatch with his knife. Pete records everything for what he imagines will be social media glory. "Hands behind your back," Tommy orders. Elijah doesn't comply. His military bearing becomes more obvious as civilian pretense weakens. Something in his stance makes Jake hesitate momentarily. "I said hands behind your back." Tommy reaches for Elijah's wrists. The grab attempt triggers defensive reflexes drilled through countless hours of training. Elijah sidesteps smoothly, causing Tommy to stumble forward off balance. Derek raises his knife higher. "Resisting arrest now? That's another charge." They're not police officers. They have no authority to arrest anyone. But in their minds, they represent law and order in the neighborhood they claim to protect. The sound of sirens grows audible in the distance. Real police approach, responding to Mrs. Delgado's call about the disturbance. "Perfect timing," Derek says confidently. "Now they'll see what we've been dealing with." Jake grins as he continues filming. "Got everything on video. Clear case of a troublemaker resisting lawful citizens." Pete lowers his phone slightly, finally recognizing the magnitude of their mistake. But peer pressure and fear keep him silent about his growing doubts. Officer Parker's voice crackles over the radio as he approaches. "Dispatch, I need you to run a background check on the complainant." The database search reveals military service records, combat decorations, and one particular honor that will transform this confrontation completely. Tommy makes another grab for Elijah's hands. This time, muscle memory takes over. Years of training in hostile territories where hesitation meant death. The response is swift, controlled, but unmistakably professional. Tommy finds himself face down in the mud before he understands what happened. "What the hell?" Derek backs away, knife wavering in suddenly uncertain hands. Jake drops the garden shears, recognizing combat skills far beyond civilian capability. The dynamic has shifted in ways they don't comprehend. Elijah straightens slowly, his true nature finally visible beneath the farmer's facade. The man they thought they were intimidating no longer exists. Police sirens grow louder. Officer Parker receives the database results that will end this confrontation and begin the Riverside Reapers' destruction. These 4 men thought they were hunting prey. They've just discovered they cornered a predator. Officer Bradley Parker's patrol car rounds the corner as his radio crackles with database results. The screen displays military service records that make him slam on the brakes. "Dispatch, confirm this information. Subject shows Congressional Medal of Honor recipient, Navy SEAL, multiple combat deployments." The radio response freezes Parker's blood. Confirmed. Elijah Thompson, 18 years active duty, medical retirement 2023. Congressional Medal of Honor for actions in Afghanistan. Chen's Marine background kicks in immediately. Every military person knows that a medal represents the highest valor possible. Only 3,500 have ever been awarded. He's about to encounter a living legend. Two more patrol cars arrive within seconds, lights flashing but sirens now silent. The responding officers, both veterans themselves, have heard the radio chatter about the Medal of Honor recipient. Derek watches the police arrival with smug satisfaction. About time. Now you'll see justice. He has no idea that justice is about to find him in ways he never imagined. Officer Parker approaches the scene and immediately recognizes what he's witnessing. 4 white men surrounding a black man in a destroyed garden. Racial slurs still echoing in the air. Clear hate crime in progress. "Sir, are you Elijah Thompson?" Parker asks respectfully. "Yes, officer." Elijah's voice carries quiet dignity despite the chaos around him. Chen's military bearing straightens instinctively. "Sir, I'm Marine veteran Bradley Parker. Could you please step over here while we sort this out?" The respectful tone confuses Derek completely. Police should be arresting the troublemaker, not treating him like royalty. "Officer, we were just cleaning up this neighborhood nuisance," Derek interrupts, waving his knife dismissively. Chen's eyes lock onto the weapon, then scan the destroyed garden. Training and experience tell the complete story in seconds. This isn't community cleanup, it's systematic intimidation and destruction. "Put that weapon down immediately," Parker commands Derek with unmistakable authority. The second officer, Sergeant Maria Santos, surveys the scene with growing anger. Her father served in Vietnam. She understands what they're witnessing, civilians attacking a war hero. "What's your name, sir?" Santos asks Derek. "Derek Morrison. These guys will vouch for me. We're neighborhood watch, cleaning up problems." Santos checks Derek's ID against her database. Multiple arrests for assault, harassment, hate crimes pending. The pattern becomes crystal clear. Officer Parker approaches Elijah privately. "Sir, I need to ask, are you Elijah Thompson who received the Medal of Honor for saving 23 civilians in Kandahar?" "Yes, officer." Chen's voice drops to a reverential whisper. "Sir, it's an honor to meet you. What happened here?" Elijah gestures toward his destroyed garden with calm control. "They said I didn't belong in this neighborhood. Then they started destroying everything." The power dynamic shifts visibly as more officers arrive. Word spreads quickly through police radio about the Medal of Honor recipient. Veterans on the force respond with personal urgency. Derek senses the change but doesn't understand it. "Officer, you need to arrest this troublemaker. He's been threatening us." Tommy tries supporting Derek's narrative. "Yeah, he got violent when we asked about permits." Jake remains silent, finally recognizing they've made a catastrophic mistake. Pete has stopped filming entirely, phone hanging uselessly at his side. Santos reviews Pete's phone footage, with his permission, and watches Derek's racist tirade, the systematic destruction, threats against elderly Mrs. Delgado. The evidence is overwhelming. "Derek Morrison, you're under arrest for hate crimes, destruction of property, and assault," Santos announces. Derek's world crumbles in real time. "Wait, what? We're the victims here." Chen begins reading Miranda rights while other officers secure the scene. Mrs. Delgado emerges to provide witness testimony about the gang's threats and destruction. "I don't understand," Derek protests as handcuffs click shut. "He's just some guy with a garden." Santos looks Derek directly in the eyes. "That guy is a Congressional Medal of Honor recipient who risked his life to save innocent people overseas, and you just committed federal hate crimes against him." The blood drains from Derek's face as reality penetrates his arrogance. Tommy starts hyperventilating, understanding their legal jeopardy for the first time. Jake surrenders without resistance, recognizing when superior force has arrived. Years of bullying civilians has left him unprepared for actual consequences. Pete breaks down completely. "We didn't know. Nobody told us he was military." Officer Parker responds with cold professionalism. Would it have mattered if he wasn't? More patrol cars arrive as word spreads through the department. Veteran officers volunteer to handle evidence collection, witness interviews, and crime scene documentation. This case has become personal for everyone who served. Elijah maintains dignified composure throughout the arrests. No gloating, no anger, just quiet strength that makes Derek's earlier bravado look pathetic by comparison. Mrs. Delgado approaches Elijah with tears in her eyes. "Mijo, I'm so sorry this happened to you." "It's not your fault, Mrs. Delgado. Thank you for calling for help." Derek makes one final desperate attempt. "Look, we support our troops. We didn't know he served." Chen responds with barely controlled fury. "Supporting troops means respecting all veterans, not just the ones you approve of." Santos adds cuffs to Tommy and Jake while reading charges. Federal hate crimes carry 10-year minimum sentences. You picked the wrong American hero to mess with. The Riverside Reapers' reign of neighborhood terror ends with the click of handcuffs and the reading of constitutional rights they never believed applied to their victims. Local news crews begin arriving, alerted by police scanners about hate crimes against Medal of Honor recipients. The story that will destroy these men's lives is just beginning. Derek, Tommy, Jake, and Pete sit in patrol cars, finally understanding they've attacked someone whose sacrifice and service represent everything they claim to value. The garden lies in ruins, but the man who built it stands unbowed. Justice has arrived in the form of badges worn by people who understand the true meaning of service. Elijah Thompson's quiet dignity in the face of hatred will soon inspire a nation. The Riverside Reapers' hatred will soon make them pariahs. Derek's handcuffs bite into his wrists as Officer Parker loads him into the patrol car. The metal seats smell of disinfectant and defeat. Through the window, he watches more police arrive to document his crimes. "This is bullshit," Derek shouts, his voice cracking with desperation. "We didn't know he was in the military. We support our troops." Chen's response carries ice-cold professionalism. "You support troops by attacking them in their gardens?" Mrs. Delgado provides detailed testimony to Sergeant Santos, her voice steady despite trembling hands. "They threatened to hurt me if I didn't mind my own business." Santos documents every word carefully. Elder intimidation adds another federal charge to the growing list against the gang members. Tommy hyperventilates in the second patrol car, finally understanding the magnitude of their mistake. "Derek said it would just be property damage. Nobody mentioned assault charges." Jake remains silent, recognizing that anything he says will worsen their legal situation. His prior criminal record means this conviction could trigger life sentences under 3-strike laws. Pete sobs uncontrollably in the third car. "My parents are going to kill me. I was supposed to start college next month." Officer Rodriguez, himself a disabled veteran, shows no sympathy. "Should have thought about college before committing federal hate crimes." Detective Sarah Kim arrives to coordinate the investigation. A 20-year veteran with expertise in hate crimes, she recognizes the case's significance immediately. "Congressional Medal of Honor recipient attacked in his own garden," she summarizes for the growing crowd of officers. "This goes federal within the hour." Evidence technicians photograph the systematic destruction. Measuring tapes document distances. Each broken plant becomes evidence of premeditated property damage. The destroyed memorial section receives special attention. Desecrating veteran memorials carries enhanced penalties under federal law. Derek's boot prints in the mud become photographic evidence. Derek attempts another desperate defense. "Look, it was just property damage. Nobody got seriously hurt." Detective Kim responds with prosecutorial precision. "Property damage motivated by racial hatred is a federal hate crime. Attacking veterans carries enhanced sentences." Local news crews set up across the street, alerted by police scanner traffic about the hate crime. Reporter Jennifer Walsh recognizes the story's national implications immediately. This is Channel 7 News reporting live from Riverside, where 4 men have been arrested for hate crimes against a Congressional Medal of Honor recipient. The live broadcast begins spreading across social media within minutes. Justice. For Elijah starts trending as people share the destruction footage. Elijah speaks quietly with Detective Kim, providing calm, factual testimony about the morning's events. His military bearing impresses every officer present. They claimed neighborhood watch authority to justify the search, Elijah explains, then escalated to physical intimidation when I remained calm. Kim nods, taking detailed notes. Their own video footage shows premeditation, racial motivation, and systematic destruction. Tommy makes a pathetic attempt at plea bargaining from his patrol car. I'll testify against Derek. This was all his idea. Santos ignores the desperate offer. Prosecutors will handle plea negotiations after formal charges are filed. The American Legion Post 247 arrives en masse after hearing about the attack on their fellow veteran. 15 older men in matching caps form a protective circle around Elijah. "Brother, we got your back," announces Commander Frank Rodriguez, a Vietnam veteran with silver hair and fierce eyes. Their presence sends a clear message to any remaining gang sympathizers. Attacking one veteran means facing them all. Derek watches through the patrol car window as the veteran community rallies around Elijah. His racist worldview cannot process this display of multiracial military brotherhood. "This isn't how it's supposed to work," Derek mutters to himself. Pete's phone, now evidence, contains hours of footage that will convict all 4 men. Their own documentation of hate crimes becomes prosecutorial gold. Federal agents arrive to assume jurisdiction over the hate crime charges. Agent Lisa Lane, no relation to Officer Parker, takes command of the expanded investigation. Attacking Medal of Honor recipients triggers automatic federal review, she explains to local police. This case goes to Washington. Jake finally breaks his silence. "Can we make a deal? I got information about other gang activities." Agent Parker responds coldly. "Federal prosecutors don't negotiate from patrol cars." Mrs. Delgado brings Elijah a fresh cup of coffee as police continue documenting evidence. "Mijo, I'm so proud of how you handled those bullies." "Thank you for calling for help, Mrs. Delgado. Your courage made the difference." Derek's final desperate plea echoes from the patrol car. "We're patriots. We love America. This is all a misunderstanding." Officer Parker slams the car door shut, muffling Derek's protests. Patriotism doesn't include attacking the people who earned it through blood and sacrifice. The booking process begins with fingerprints, mugshots, and formal charges reading. 4 young men who woke up feeling powerful now face decades in federal prison. Tommy vomits in his holding cell, overwhelmed by the consequences crashing down around him. College dreams replaced by prison reality. Pete calls his parents from jail, sobbing apologies that cannot undo recorded evidence of his participation in hate crimes. Jake sits in stoic silence, calculating how many years of his life he just threw away for Derek's approval. Derek rages impotently in solitary holding, still unable to comprehend how attacking a simple gardener destroyed his entire future. Their bail hearing is scheduled for Monday morning. Federal hate crime charges typically result in detention without bail. Outside, the veteran community begins organizing support for Elijah. Plans emerge for rebuilding his garden bigger and better than before. Justice moves swiftly when the victims wear medals earned in service to their country. The Riverside Reaper's reign of terror has ended in handcuffs and federal charges. Within 48 hours, FBI Special Agent Maria Rodriguez arrives from the Civil Rights Division in Washington. The attack on a Medal of Honor recipient triggers automatic federal oversight under hate crime statutes. "This case represents everything wrong with domestic terrorism," Rodriguez announces at the federal courthouse. 4 individuals systematically targeted a war hero because of his race. The grand jury convenes Tuesday morning in federal court. 23 citizens review video evidence, witness testimony, and Derek's own recorded racial slurs. Deliberation lasts 37 minutes. "True bill on all counts," the foreman announces. Federal hate crime indictments carry mandatory minimum sentences of 10 years each. CNN picked up the story Wednesday evening. Anderson Cooper's voice carries gravity as he introduces the segment. Tonight, the attack on American hero Elijah Thompson exposes the ugly reality of domestic hate crimes. The network airs Pete's phone footage of Derek destroying the memorial garden. Millions watch an American flag trampled by boots that never walked foreign battlefields. Social media explodes with outrage. #justice. For Elijah trends globally as celebrities, politicians, and ordinary citizens share the story. The video has 20 million views within hours. Derek's public defender, overwhelmed young attorney Marcus Webb, meets his client in federal holding. The evidence seems insurmountable. Derek, they have you on video committing hate crimes against a Medal of Honor recipient. Federal prosecutors are offering life sentences. Derek's bravado finally cracks completely. Life? For property damage? Webb shakes his head sadly. This stopped being property damage when you used racial slurs and attacked a veteran. This is domestic terrorism now. Tommy and Pete accept plea agreements, agreeing to testify against Derek in exchange for reduced sentences. Their cooperation provides prosecutors with insider details about gang operations. Jake refuses all deals, betting on jury nullification in conservative Ohio. His attorney warns this strategy will backfire spectacularly. The Veterans of Foreign Wars launches a national fundraising campaign for Elijah's garden reconstruction. Donations pour in from all 50 states and 12 foreign countries. Brother Thompson represents the best of American military service, VFW National Commander Patricia Williams announces. This attack strikes at the heart of what we fought to defend. Preliminary hearings begin in Judge Catherine Morrison's courtroom. No relation to Derek, despite the shared surname. Her 30 years on the federal bench have prepared her for high-profile cases. This court will tolerate no disruption during these proceedings, Judge Morrison warns the packed gallery. The defendant will receive a fair trial regardless of public sentiment. Derek enters wearing an orange jumpsuit and shackles. The cocky gang leader has been replaced by a broken man facing life imprisonment. Prosecutor Sarah Kim presents opening arguments with methodical precision. Ladies and gentlemen, the evidence will show systematic racial harassment escalating to destruction of property honoring fallen American soldiers. Defense attorney Webb makes a desperate attempt. My client made terrible mistakes driven by economic anxiety and social pressures, but mistakes don't equal federal hate crimes. The prosecution's case unfolds like a legal textbook. Video evidence, expert witnesses, character testimony about Elijah's military service and community contributions. Dr. James Patterson, military historian from Ohio State University, explains the significance of the Congressional Medal of Honor. Only 3,500 Americans have received this recognition since 1861. Mr. Thompson represents the pinnacle of military valor. Mrs. Delgado testified about the gang's intimidation campaign. They wanted to drive out anyone who didn't look like them. Elijah was their biggest target because he wouldn't be scared. Tommy takes the witness stand against his former leader. Derek said we had to clean up the neighborhood and show these people who's boss. He specifically targeted Black and Latino families. Pete's testimony reveals the systematic nature of their crimes. We recorded everything to post online and intimidate other families. Derek wanted to make examples. The defense calls character witnesses for Derek, but they crumble under cross-examination. Former teachers describe his racist outbursts in high school. Former employers recount harassment complaints. Elijah's testimony provides the trial's most powerful moment. Speaking with quiet dignity, he describes 18 years of military service and his dream of peaceful civilian life. I served this country in Afghanistan and Iraq, fighting people who hate American values, Elijah states calmly. I never expected to face that same hatred in my own garden. Derek's attorney attempts to discredit Elijah's character, but it backfires spectacularly. The jury sees a war hero maintaining dignity while being attacked by defense lawyers. Expert testimony about hate crimes explains the psychological impact on communities. These attacks create a climate of fear affecting all minority residents. The systematic nature shows clear terrorist intent. Social media monitoring reveals the case's national impact. Support for Elijah crosses all political and racial lines. Even conservative commentators condemn the attack on a military hero. Derek takes the stand in his own defense, against his attorney's advice. The decision proves catastrophic as prosecutors demolish his credibility with his own recorded words. "You called Mr. Thompson racial slurs while destroying plants honoring dead soldiers," Prosecutor Kim states factually. "How do you explain that behavior?" Derek's attempts at justification sound pathetic. "I was angry about property values and neighborhood changes. I said things I didn't mean." The cross-examination continues relentlessly. "Did property values motivate you to desecrate the American flag?" Jury deliberation begins Friday afternoon. Veterans pack the courthouse gallery while the 12 citizens consider evidence. Saturday morning brings the verdict. Derek Morrison, guilty on all federal hate crime charges. Jake Winters, guilty on all counts. Enhanced sentences apply due to veteran victim status. Judge Morrison's sentencing hearing draws national media attention. The courtroom overflow section accommodates veterans groups, civil rights organizations, and community supporters. "Mr. Morrison, your actions represent an attack on American values themselves," Judge Morrison states from the bench. "This court sentences you to 15 years federal imprisonment." Jake receives 12 years for weapons charges and participation in the conspiracy. Tommy gets 8 years under his plea agreement. Pete receives 3 years probation and 2,000 hours community service. Civil lawsuits follow immediately. Elijah's attorney files for damages under federal civil rights statutes. The gang member's assets will fund his garden reconstruction and veteran support programs. The American Legion presents Elijah with their Distinguished Service Award at a ceremony attended by Senator Rob Portman and Governor Mike DeWine. Elijah Thompson embodies the resilience and dignity of American military service, Senator Portman announces. His response to hatred with grace inspires us all. National news coverage transforms the story into a symbol of justice prevailing over hate. Documentary filmmakers begin planning a feature about veteran discrimination and community resilience. Derek sits in his federal prison cell, finally understanding the consequences of attacking someone who earned respect through blood and sacrifice. The garden reconstruction begins with volunteer labor from veteran organizations nationwide. What started as one man's peaceful dream becomes a national symbol of resilience over hatred. Justice has been served, but the larger work of building inclusive communities continues. 6 months later, Elijah kneels in his reconstructed garden as morning sunlight filters through new greenhouse panels. The scent of rich soil mingles with brewing coffee from Mrs. Delgado's kitchen. The memorial section has been expanded into a proper tribute wall, honoring fallen veterans from all conflicts. Bronze plaques bear names of heroes from World War II through Afghanistan. Fresh flowers appear daily, left by grateful community members. "Morning, brother," calls Commander Rodriguez from the American Legion. The weekly volunteer session brings 20 veterans to help maintain the community garden that has grown beyond Elijah's original plot. Neighbor families of all backgrounds tend their assigned sections. The Martinez children plant marigolds alongside the Johnson family's tomatoes. Mrs. Parker teaches herb cultivation to teenage volunteers from the local high school. Elijah moves between the rows with practiced ease, his movements still carrying military precision, but softened by genuine peace. The tactical awareness remains, but hypervigilance has faded through months of community healing. "How are the peppers looking?" asks Jennifer Walsh, now documenting the garden's transformation for a follow-up news feature. "Growing strong," Elijah responds, examining the healthy plants. "Like everything else here." The community center hosts Elijah's weekly veterans support group. 12 former service members gather around a conference table, sharing struggles and victories in civilian transition. Some days I still wake up expecting incoming mortars, admits Sarah, a Marine veteran from Iraq. But working in the garden grounds me, reminds me I'm building something instead of destroying it. Elijah nods with understanding. We all carry invisible wounds, but healing happens when we help each other grow. Derek Morrison serves his sentence in federal prison, participating in mandatory counseling programs about racial reconciliation and community service. His letters to Elijah, initially hostile, have evolved into requests for forgiveness. Tommy teaches literacy classes to fellow inmates, finding purpose in education he never valued outside. Pete attends community college while completing his service hours at veteran assistance programs. Jake remains unrepentant in maximum security, still blaming others for consequences he refuses to accept. The Riverside neighborhood has transformed completely. Property values increased as families of all backgrounds moved in, attracted by the community spirit and veteran support programs. Local schools incorporate Elijah's story into their curriculum about courage, dignity, and responding to hatred with grace. Elementary students plant seeds while learning about military service and sacrifice. Mr. Thompson taught us that real strength means protecting others, not hurting them, explains 8-year-old Maria during a school presentation. The Veterans Administration selected Elijah's program as a model for community-based veteran integration nationwide. Federal funding supports expansion to 12 additional cities. Mrs. Delgado, now 68, serves as volunteer coordinator for the garden's educational programs. Her coffee still fuels morning work sessions. Her wisdom guides conflict resolution. That boy taught us all what dignity looks like, she tells visiting reporters. He could have destroyed those men with his bare hands, but he chose a better way. Elijah's autobiography, Seeds of Service, becomes a bestseller with proceeds funding veteran mental health programs. Speaking engagements take him across the country, sharing lessons about resilience and forgiveness. At the Congressional Medal of Honor Society's annual convention, Elijah addresses fellow recipients about civilian challenges. We fought overseas to defend American values. Now we must live those values every day at home. The original destruction video serves as training material for law enforcement agencies learning to recognize and respond to hate crimes. Elijah consults with police departments about veteran awareness and community protection. Derek's former gang members have scattered or been arrested on other charges. The Riverside Reapers exist only in court records and cautionary tales about the consequences of hate. Standing in his thriving garden, Elijah reflects on the journey from destruction to renewal. Tomatoes climb toward the sky. Corn stands in perfect formation. Children's laughter echoes from the playground built where vacant lots once festered. I spent 18 years fighting for this country overseas, Elijah says to the camera. I never thought I'd have to fight for respect at home. But here's what I learned. Real strength isn't about who can destroy the most. It's about who can build something beautiful, even after everything's been torn down. The community garden buzzes with activity as families tend their plots, veterans share stories, and children learn about growing things. What began as one man's dream of peace has become a symbol of national healing. Every seed we plant is an act of hope, Elijah continues. Every garden we grow is proof that creation is stronger than destruction. They thought they knew who I was based on what I looked like. They thought my service didn't matter because of my skin color. But respect isn't about the uniform you wear. It's about the character you show when no one's watching. The American flag waves gently over the memorial garden, its colors bright against the green backdrop of growing plants. Justice isn't about revenge. It's about ensuring no one else has to face what we faced. If this story moved you, share it. If it made you think, comment below with your thoughts. If it inspired you to act, tell us what you're doing in your community. Subscribe to Black Voices Speak for more stories of justice, resilience, and the power of standing up for what's right. Have you ever discovered that someone you judged was completely different than you assumed? Have you ever stood up for someone when it wasn't easy? Have you ever thanked a veteran for their service? What would you do if you saw this happening in your neighborhood? Remember, every person has a story. Every veteran has sacrificed for your freedom. Every community needs people willing to stand up for what's right. Be that person. Be the change. Be the justice you want to see in the world.